welcome everybody to, voila, Biotech Startup Series number 7. I am Nina Dudnick. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Biolabs, and I'm delighted to be here in person with everybody here in Paris. Biolabs is in pursuit, I think, of the answers to a very popular question, which is what does it take to accelerate innovation? And this is a question that literally I think everybody in the world is asking. I've had conversations about it with people in Chicago, in Paris, in Nairobi, in Bangalore. Everybody in the world is thinking about this question. And it's not about what does it take to have a good idea, because good ideas are plentiful everywhere in the world. No part of the world, no city, no state, no country has a monopoly on smart, talented people with good ideas. And so the question is really, what does it take to turn those good ideas and the people who have them, to help them have the success of turning those ideas into something real, something that in the case of healthcare gets to a patient, that gets to a market. And that is a complicated question. At Biolabs, we have a number of hypotheses. We want to be good scientists, after all. We have some hypotheses about what that takes and what the ingredients are for a particular geography to make that acceleration possible. And what we are doing is trying to create physical spaces that make that possible, that sit inside of the geographies that we think have all of the ingredients to be able to select and identify extraordinary entrepreneurs and startups, to give them a set of resources that together are rather unique as a package, that we can provide them inside of our walls, but also to be a place that convenes all those other actors in the ecosystem, to give them a physical location and a community to come together around. Because ultimately, right, it does indeed take a village to make this kind of thing happen. And so we are very excited, after almost 10 years of doing this in the United States, to be here in France and trying this experiment here. And it does take all of you who are here tonight, wherever it is that you are, whether it's online or here in this room. It takes every single one of you. You are all part of that success. And so we have lots of ways we'll get to about how you can participate in that, starting literally now. And of course, none of this experiment would be possible without our partners at Servier. So I'm delighted to hand the mic to Olivier Nogent.
Thank you, Nina. Well, Nina made such a great and inspiring introduction. I think I'm left with being very short and concise, which is fair because there's plenty of very interesting things we have programmed for you today. First, I would like to thank our speakers who are waiting before they get on the stage. We're going to touch on a very common yet very strategic aspect of the activities of companies, small and large companies actually, but with an specific insight tonight on small companies, on how to outsource the part or all of the activities. I will also say a word to the Biolabs team. There's Hélène Cyr and Clément Lapierre around who made a tremendous job to organize the event. So thank you, Hélène and Clément. I see Audrey Artignan, part of the Servier team. You will meet Audrey, at least for those standing in the room, during the networking event, because our partnerships between Servier and Biolabs not only allows us to bring to you some of these conferences, but maybe those who come to the conference for the first time are not aware that we have a long-standing partnership, actually, both in the US and in France. And talking about France, we are currently working to provide to the young companies in France a unique place to be, to grow, and to work. That's going to be alongside our new R&D center in Paris-Saclay. So it's not named yet, so it's going to be an open accelerator, let's say, to put a few words on that. You will see some pictures of that, some live, or not live, but immersive pictures upstairs. We have prepared a 3D immersive video. You will be able to walk through the building. and much more importantly, we'll also be able to discuss about what this project means to Servier and to you guys as a company, if you want to join, if you want to enjoy the expert advice from the Servier people and the know-how of biolabs to help you grow your business. So Céline Triquel, sitting in the room, will be there also to answer your questions. So having said that, I think there's also a few other things you want to say, Nina, about our partnership.
So many things to say about it. No, we're very grateful to Servier for making so much of this possible. Not just a physical incubator coming in about a year, and all this programming that we can bring to you and to the community worldwide. Do you want to advance the slide? Voila. We have a program that we've been conducting called a masterclass. An extraordinary group of French startups. We've been providing them some virtual training throughout COVID, and they're going to be joining us in about a month for a week-long immersion in Boston with local experts and an enormous amount of networking and connection building, because we believe that science is global. And after the last 2 years, I think we can all agree that it does not matter where your colleagues and collaborators are in the world. We've all learned how to collaborate across borders. And so we're trying very hard to create those connections and to help French startups grow and be retained here in France and be global at the same time. And so we're very excited to say that we have a second round of this program coming up in the fall. This is a great QR code you can all take to get yourselves on the mailing list so that you know when this application process begins for the next group of startups. So we invite you to share that far and wide. And do we want to say when our next event is? At the end. Well, I leave you waiting to find out when the next event is, and you'll be able to get on the mailing list for that as well. And now I will hand it over to Olivier to introduce our illustrious panel of speakers tonight. I'm very excited about this topic because I know literally nothing about it. So I'm very excited to learn and very grateful for the speakers that we have this evening.
Hello, hello. So we are supposed to start now? Yes?
Go ahead.
Good. So thank you everybody for being here. Thanks to you all especially. The idea is, I understand that the audience, that means you who are physically present here and people on the other side of the cameras, are, please correct me if I am wrong, entrepreneurs, scientists about to create a company, or is there any entrepreneur here? Good. Representatives of TTOs or SATs, consultants. So who are you? Because no one raised a hand. So, for instance,
I am an entrepreneur.
good. So, are there other entrepreneurs that are not manifesting themselves? So, your company is already created. You are sorry if you are very well known, and I don't know. I'm sure it is the case.
About to start a new endeavor.
Good. So I'm trying to reframe what we will try to do here. This is about outsourcing. That means, in 2 words, when an entrepreneur moves from science, we are talking about a biotechnology. So most entrepreneurs are are scientists or technologists. Decide to create a company that starts from a sort of chaos to something that is organized and should work as a machine. And that means a lot of things to be done, a lack of expertise in every one of those things, and a little money. That means that choices have to be made on what will be done in-house and what eventually may be done outside or outsource or externalize. So that is the frame of the question, and the idea is to cover different aspects from different perspectives. And we have here 3 professionals that develop their careers somehow, either buying services or offering services from or to companies that are outsourcing. And we will try to explore different aspects of the question, knowing that we will focus on entrepreneurs trying to create companies and not necessarily on companies that are well developed and know very well how and what to outsource. So the first thing is to introduce the speakers with great pleasure. Pauline, please.
Hi, I'm Pauline de Breteuil. I've launched an investment company in healthcare, tech, biotech, and digital. And we have already invested in 10 projects. And that's it.
Thank you. I am Anne Ferrodet. I am the CEO of BioSupport. I've been working in biotech startups in a bit more of 10 years. And maybe a few words about BioSupport now, Manuel, or so BioSupport is providing human resources for biotech startup, and we are focusing on supporting activities, financial, legal counsel, marketing, and things like that. But I think we'll have some time to speak more about that later.
Thank you. So I'm Pascal Leroux. I'm co-founder and chief operating officer of Xentech. Xentech is a company that we have created over 16 years ago as a spin-off of Institut Curie. So that means that we are focused on cancer, and we are a CRO specialized in in vivo efficacy tests. So we work with companies worldwide in order to test the anti-tumor efficacy of their candidate drugs. And of course, as we are a CRO but a biotech also, we have R&D activities for the development of new companion diagnostic tests and the development of our platform.
Thank you. Myself, I'm Manuel Vega. I have 2 hats here, at least. One is representing a consulting company, a operating partner for clients that externalize, especially strategy, implementation or design and operation. And the second one is as an entrepreneur. Over 20 years, I've been consuming outsourcing from different levels, and so the experience I hope here is to share with you why decisions on outsourcing different aspects have been made and what has been the result of that. So the idea here is to ask the speakers to express themselves, not necessarily representing or selling their companies or doing marketing on their companies, but sharing with you and addressing the questions that you may have, we imagine that you may have, as advisors, as coming from their own experience over years, because they have passed through what, again, our target audience are entrepreneurs that don't know what comes. Sorry if you already know that. And so the idea is to help with what we will be saying, and this is to the speakers. Please just describe your stories and your mistakes and whatever really work in positive to help the others not to do the same. So for me, the very first question would be probably a paraphrasing Shakespeare, if I may, is to outsource or not to outsource. That is the question. Probably that question is easier because the answer is yes. Outsourcing needs to be done. but the real question is what to be outsourced and where to draw the limit between the different activities that entrepreneurs are facing when building their companies. So probably the first point for you all three is what you think is in the list of things that are to be outsourced legitimately.
Well, I will start maybe.
Yeah, sure.
What to outsource? In our domain, biotech domain, I guess that people and entrepreneurs must be focused on the development of their company, meaning the technology, business, and of course, finance. And all supporting activities like marketing, informatics, legal things, finance, accounting, and human resource also. You will not have the need to have someone at full time, and you will also maybe not have the budget. Just before you say about little budget and choices to be made. And I think that choices and all the efforts must go on the technology, and all these supporting activities must be outsourced to really be focused and drive the activity for the development of the company.
I think you can outsource many things as long as it's not in your core business. So as an entrepreneur, you have to find money, you have to you have a project, you have to move forward on your drugs. And of course, you need to have access to specialists. You don't have to reinvent everything anytime. And so it's important to find what is key for you. And what is key in your company is the strategy mainly, the finances and so on. But everything you can outsource, yes, you should outsource. But you should outsource to companies that have a real added value. It's not the idea is not to outsource things you don't want to do. The idea is to outsource things you are not able to do the right way, or as where you not have the skills to provide a real expertise and to have a real added value. And therefore you have to find the different partners that have a real added value for each items you want to outsource.
I totally agree with you. I would say you can outsource nearly everything. I would say as far as biotech are concerned, to be specific, I would say, of course, HR, finance, marketing, but also, if we can go further, you have a lot of service for biotechs, meaning production, meaning legal, meaning many things that are not research. So I would say that a biotech could basically outsource everything except research. In the value chain, I would say there are, the biotechs that could be concentrate on research. Then the service for biotechs on everything else, and the big labs concentrate more on market access and also legals. Broadly, that's what I would say. And as investors, we're more and more looking at opportunities of investment in these biotech services.
So interesting, because when I started my first entrepreneurial experience 20-something years ago, people didn't think that way, because I wanted to touch what you had built as a company and sold to investors. They wanted you to have everything in a box, and the idea of outsourcing was not that welcome 20 years ago. Now it seems that you are proposing to literally outsource everything except research. I will come back to provoke a discussion there. That means that we can move to a sort of virtual company where everything is done outside and at a distance. Yes or no, and why? And how do you protect yourself? So there are many questions in there.
Just for the distance and virtual company aspects, I think some things, yes, can be done at distance. And with the COVID, we saw that a lot of things are possible. Maybe marketing communication activities, legal, informatics maybe also. But some activities, you must have the person with you. And
Which ones?
Human resource, you cannot manage human resource without being here. Everything which is administrative and accounting also, I think it's a bit difficult not to be here. And I think maybe that's it. So not really a virtual company, but some activities, yes, definitely.
I thought, Pascal, you had something to say, or I misinterpreted.
So you cannot outsource science, but you can outsource scientific activities. Obviously, you have to understand what you outsource and why you outsource different things. For example, if you want to perform in vivo activities, such as what we do at Xentech, you need a vivarium, you need some legal aspects, you have the authorization from the French ministry on research and so on. And so it's a mess. So it's time consuming and it's cost expensive to have that in-house. So the idea is for such kind of activity to outsource to companies that have that are specialized in scientific activities that needs some technical platforms. The question is how do we deal for IP? I think it was yeah. So when you outsource, you may be a bit frightened of your IP and the way we can manage it, but it's our job. So the confidentiality is not an issue for us. It's key, and it's something we deal, of course, from the beginning with different legal aspects that are very key and takes time when you start discussing with a new partner, a new sponsor. First step is to set up, of course, a CDA, because we cannot discuss if we don't have any CDA. Second step, of course, is if you need some sample that you want to check to make sure that you are. We work in oncology. So in oncology, we work mainly on targeted therapies. So that means that we need to have the right models for your projects. Having the right models means that you need to check that we have models that have genetic alterations of interest or specific patterns. So first of all, you can check in our data bank, or you can also request some samples. And many CROs works this way. We can provide samples just to check if they are the right ones. For that, we have to set up, of course, an MTA. And both CDA or MTA are to be set up to protect your compounds, but also our IP. Because we are scientific companies, we have our own IP, so we do protect our IP, but we also protect your IP. That means also that when we sign a service agreement, obviously all the results, all the data that are generated with your compounds belongs to you, of course, and we also provide a free license for the use of our own IP related to your compounds. So that means that in any way we do not you have all the IP and all the freedom to operate the IP when you work in CROs. It's not a partnership, it's a contract service activity, a fee-for-service activity, and there's no issue.
So it took only 5 minutes to get to the IP. Finally, we started talking about outsourcing, and it is probably the only thing that cannot be outsourced, because you will be losing the core value of the company, not the core operation of the company. But in terms of outsourcing IP, I think that we should differentiate right between intellectual property firms and externalizing the IP. That's the only thing that you cannot afford to lose or to share. Otherwise, there is not even a company. And Pascal explained how it is handled. So if I rephrase, somehow, even if you externalize the research, which probably, because we are talking about biotech, and therefore founders are scientists, and therefore the sense of the value of what they are doing in the bench is the center of the thing, but in fact it's not that the center of the thing, but creating IP that can be handled otherwise, not only doing the experiments, which can be externalized while protecting the IP. That means that we can even outsource the R&D while keeping the rights on what investors say about that, because probably investors will raise a hand and say, no, if you do that, what is it tangible? I investing in what? I want to touch people, I want to touch labs, I want to see that you have something. So what is the position of investors in front of externalizing R&D, even early stage?
I'm very open-minded on the subjects. And back to basics, it would be really having something of your own, I would say really research, and then externalizing others. If for example, if you are looking for a molecule, and you can externalize, for me, all the research for vectors, and the opposite is the same. So really, I don't see a limit for that. A tip I would say, because we had the problems. You were talking about problems and that we can have in externalizing, outsourcing, that sometimes when you outsource with a company that is huge, for example, and you are a startup, it's great because maybe they have much expertise on what you don't have, that's great, but also maybe they are very formal or they have a slow rhythm. So we saw some companies that couldn't handle the rhythm of, well, you mustn't be too far from your partner. It's very basic observations, but, and on the contrary, you shouldn't choose, if you're a startup, you are very efficient, very quick, but you're not by the book always, so don't choose a partner that is not by the book, because then after it could create a disaster. So it's a mixed, I would say, balancing in the choose of the partnerships. But if we come back to more basic, also stuff that you can outsource, if we can come back on HR, finance, and all that, Anne was telling us, and she has, a great experience in that you cannot outsource. As investors, I see some part of finance that's great to outsource. For example, if you're searching for loans and all that, it's a part of finance. You're not obliged to do that. You have companies that are very good for that, and save you some times, and so that you can concentrate on your research. On HR, you have also tools that are absolutely great to use. For example, if you're looking for developers, and you can have like hand hunters, okay, but they're expensive and that takes time. I see some of my companies where we invested, they use like tools like games, coding games, and so they have their IT man, and he has done the games, and so you can really I'd say you have your all people interested by the job, and they do the coding test, and then you can rate them, compare it to your IT man, and so we are thinking in outsourcing partners and firms, but you can also have tools, of course. So there were examples in those subjects where we think sometimes it's better to have all but I think when you go in deeper in details, you can outsource many things.
Please,
Yeah, just a reaction. I agree. You can definitively outsource human resources and administrative accounting. My point was just do it virtually is not possible, but you definitely can outsource it and have the person with you. And a lot of startup companies, and not even biotechs, are using, for example, part-time financial officers at the beginning, and same for human resources. They are using a lot advocates also for this social subjects. So yes, not in virtual, but definitely outsource it, because as you were saying, Pascal, if you want to do it on your own, maybe it will take you more time. You will maybe not have some enough added value to do it the good way. And using people that are experts in that and is maybe the best option for you.
So, and what about business development, which is essential for biotech? Would you outsource someone to go look for deals, or would you recruit someone in-house?
Just maybe an experience. In a company I worked for previously, we tried to outsource business development, and it was not a success because my opinion is that the business development must be done by the entrepreneur. It is him who can sell his company, who can define the strategy, and at the very beginning, being the first seller of the company. Of course, when the company will grow, he will recruit people, but he will recruit people, having people inside, in-house. And I'm not sure that in our biotech domain, maybe in other it's possible, but in biotech I am not sure that business development can be outsourced.
I completely agree with that. We tried also to outsource our business development, and at the end of the day, it's true that, and mainly when you're a small company, you you don't sell just scientific expertise or things like that. You sell yourself. And the CEO is key, the chief scientific officer also very key, and you cannot outsource this kind of expertise. And what we've seen with the guys where we have outsourced the business development is that they wanted to talk money too quick, because they have to deal quick. And the first question is not to, when you want to outsource, the first question does not have to be how much is it, what is, please give me a quote or thing like that. The question is to be sure that your partner understands your question, understand your problems, and provide some ideas and a way to answer the real question you have. And sometimes the questions, and quite frequently, the real question is not what you ask on first sight. So that means that when you start discussing with a CRO or thing like that, if you see that the scientific part is skipped quite quickly in order to talk finance, quotation, thing like that, I'm not sure that it will be a good partner. And also, when you're a small company, I think it's not necessarily a good idea to go and see large CROs, one-stop shop, something like that, because it's a good thing when you are Sanofi, Servier, something like that, because you can outsource projects. But and just because you are a big player, you will have top scientists in front of you. When you're a small company, we have juniors, and sometimes it's quite surprising. Just to make it short, when it was 10 years ago, we have outsourced some exome sequencing to a Chinese company that was recommended by one of our customers, maybe number 3 or 4 worldwide, big pharma worldwide. They were very happy of all our their services, so we decided to work with them. We had we exome sequencing on 70 genes, and of course TP53. The first customers we had who said, "Okay, I want all your models that have a mutation on exon, I can't remember which one, 8 maybe. Can you provide me those data?" Okay, yes, we can. We checked the database, and we didn't have any answer, any data. And when we asked the PI in this CRO, said, "We never find any mutation in these exons. We didn't did it." And we realized that he decided not to sequence some exons from time to time because he considered that they were not of interest. I can tell you that if we have been a big pharma, they would have sequenced all the different exons. And it's something you will never have with a CRO that has a smaller size, but that will be more involved in the project with you. And because those projects are key for you, they also have to be key for the CRO. And it's even if it's a fee-for-service activity, it has to be in a partnership-minded between the CRO and the sponsor.
So if we consider the target audience being an entrepreneur, again probably a scientist who's creating a company, we are talking to him or to her. What is the message? To outsource business development, or to become himself or herself the business developer of her his company.
I think you don't have the choice. You have to be the business developer.
I cannot say anything else, of course. You have to sell yourself and your company. That's it.
An investor? What does he say?
Yeah, we'll agree on that, of course. Yeah, an entrepreneur is a seller. I mean,
So that I tend to believe that most people agree with that. So there is no chance for the entrepreneur to just outsource or recruit someone to go sell what that seller doesn't know and will not sell with the herd. But that means that the scientist needs to convert himself into a seller, which is not necessarily the nature of a scientist. So, and here we come to the point where a scientist that becomes an entrepreneur needs to convert himself in an entrepreneur, otherwise it will not work. It's not a question of outsourcing or not, it's a question that it's not the right entrepreneur for his or her company. Yeah, please.
yeah, but you can be free funders. As investors, we invest in teams because we know that nobody's able to do anything. So we really much favor teams, and very often you have the searcher, the PhD or whatever, and you have the seller and the IT guy or whatever, and the free. And they must get on each other very well, but also they have different competencies. So that works too.
Just I open a little parenthesis and get out of outsourcing to make a comment. Probably when the company develops a bit further, the view of the entrepreneur will be different from the view of investors or shareholders on that. Because in my experience, investors also believe that it's not the CEO, which usually is the founder, which usually has a big stake of equity, who should sell a value that belongs to the investors in the most part, but a professional, and not a founder that will try to do the deal in a way that benefits the founders, and maybe sometimes let the deal fall because he or her is not in agreement with something that for the company may be. So I close the parenthesis because it's not about outsourcing, but just to put a limit on up to where the CEO or the founder has to be the business developer. Based on, so Anne, for instance, based on the fact that we were talking about BioSupport exists since 15 or so years now, that means that many companies have come and gone as buying the services or the provision. So that means that BioSupport or an offerer of outsourcing is a stable business, so it's well established. So why? So what is the good that makes that new companies come and buy what you offer over almost 20 years? So
yeah, there is several things. First thing is that depending on the development stage of the company, our members, because we are an association, a non-profit association, so we have members, not customers, we'll have different needs. Meaning at the very beginning, they will need maybe someone doing everything about administrative, HR, accounting, and so on. After, they maybe will need someone for legal things, and Pascal told about a lot of things to do like that. And maybe a few years later, not really now, but a few years later, someone for marketing and communication. And this is all this activity we propose, and we can, with that, really help them in their development and follow them all over these years. And maybe Pascal, who is also using BioSupport since a few years, will maybe have a word to say about that, about a user. But yes, we are here we are created in 2006 at the Genopole in Évry, and also our location is a key because in Évry a lot of new companies are created each year, and we are in this network of people, and we have access to them, and we can propose our services to these new entrepreneurs, and starting from things very basics and administrative things, and after maybe quality, safety, because in our domain safety in labs is a very high topic also. So I would say yes, having very large service opportunities and being very close to the entrepreneurs.
Yes, so as Anne mentioned, we are members of BioSupport since the creation of incorporation of Xentech. So at the real beginning, we used it for just a CFO. So we were 4. So at the beginning, it was 1 day every other week, after 1 day a week, 2 days a week, and afterward we have decided to internalize this function, and afterward, at the beginning, we thought that we were able to do the legal ourselves. So,
For how long?
some years. So, and when I realized that the guy who says yes, I can do the legal, has signed some service agreements where we stated that we're GLP, and we are not GLP definitely. So we said, okay, let's get back to basics and use people that have a real expertise. And it's something that is very interesting for a startup and also a developing company, is that we can have access to people who have a real expertise, and people we cannot pay if it was not in the context of a part-time activity service. So it saves money just because you don't have to pay them full-time, and it saves also money because they have a real expertise and you avoid many mistakes.
So Pascal is very humble because he doesn't tell the full story. But I guess Xentech exists since 15 or so years too. So now it's a well-established company, which is profitable. That means that over time they have made more good decisions than bad decisions. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. So the question, as you answer a bit that, but the question now is because you have two hats too. One is they offer services, but on the other side, he's an entrepreneur because he's one of the founders. That means that at the very beginning, you were on the other side of the camera, wondering what can I outsource and what shall I do. So whatever you did with your partners, you did it well because you are here. So based on your experience from those early years, how you dealt with the outsourcing thing, and more in detail than what you always trying to advise the entrepreneur that is on the other side of the camera.
What we have decided since the beginning is to see what is to make sure that we know our core business, and our core business is on the scientific part of experimental pharmacology, and also on the development and qualification and management of complex studies, in vivo, in vitro, whatever, with a quite a high quality standard. That means that, for example, even if we had a quality manager from BioSupport for during few months, and she's leaving, sorry, but they have also a good quality manager at BioSupport. We have decided that this function had to be in our house since the beginning, because it was key for us. And all the different aspects that were definitely not key were outsourced. So the CFO at the beginning, as I mentioned, now is the legal is outsourced. The IT, we had few marketing also, but it has been stopped and never replaced. So now we do it ourselves, so we do it badly. And yes, since the beginning, we have decided to outsource whatever we could. We could have the opportunity to develop our own vivarium, because it's quite expensive to have access to a shared vivarium. So if we just focus on the cost, it would be less expensive to have our own vivarium, but vivarium per se, it's 24/7. So it's just a nightmare to manage it. And if you want to have a structure that has a good sanitary status along years without any issue with the electric system, water, and whatever you can imagine, it's worth it. You have to outsource it, and just to focus on your expertise. And I would say that many people can manage a vivarium, but I can tell you that very few people can manage our studies. So my technicians are focused on the efficacy studies and the studies for our customers, and everything else is outsourced. And it has been the same for the different part of the company, or the different items we have decided to outsource or to keep in-house.
Yeah, I just wanted to react about something just Pascal said, because he was talking about quality and he said she is leaving. And maybe as an entrepreneur, you may be afraid to say, okay, I have someone part-time or maybe subcontractor or things like that. And one day when I want to internalize, I will have to start again to train a new person. And this is also something more flexible we offer, because we have several cases where when the company is growing, they are internalizing our people in their company, and this is a very smooth transition. And this is also, I guess, for our members, something more secure, because they already know the person knows the team, knows the process, and maybe I think it's more easier for them.
So, Pauline, yes, you were saying something.
Just want to quote something else, absolutely something else. I've been an entrepreneur, and what I found is to be an entrepreneur, you have to have an ego, you have to have courage, and that's why it's so difficult at some times to say, okay, I'm not good at that, or I'm not as best as I could be, or I have to concentrate on that. Very often on startups, the boss, he wants to handle everything, and so I think that's something difficult to say, okay, no, I let go that part, and that's what I found difficult. And to give you another example, not on research, on the core business, but on finance. Another example was on the M&A, and when you're searching for money. My answer would be really divided between, the very startups starting. I would say only the boss or the team is able to sell itself and talk to the investors and and the M&A guys doesn't really help, or he just have the first meetings, but then he's quiet all the time. And when he does something, the boss, he says, no, I wouldn't have done that way, and he's always pissed off. So I would say when you're growing, yes, of course, an M&A guy is great. And also because the leaders, the management teams thinks, okay, they have matured also on that project, and they know that they really need it. But I've saw so many M&A consulting firms just and the management team very pissed off against them. Oh, I don't know where I'm paying them, or they take a percentage they shouldn't. And at the beginning, they were very excited about that. And at last, well. So you have to grown up also in your head to be able to be to partner with this type of partners.
And what about the management of the outsourcing? I mean, when you outsource a service, you pay for a sort of technical service, whether finance or an experiment, but internally you still need someone to articulate from the inside to the outside. Otherwise, you will receive a report or numbers, and you don't know what to do with that, or you don't know how to schedule and how to manage the service provider. So does it mean that even if you outsource, you need something inside, or someone taking care of that? What can you say about that from experience or from business?
Communication. I mean, you cannot just have, as you say, someone external doing his job on his side, and after just sending you the report and okay, you just pay me and that's it. And I think it is a relationship, a partnership, not only a contract between two organizations, two people. And so there is communication and, of course, organizing the work, being sure that the objectives are defined, which is not that easy in little biotech startups. And because your objectives can be on one side one day, and the next week maybe it will be on the other side. So be sure that objectives are clear and shared between the two partners. And yes, just communicate and not lose this.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, for people from BioSupport, as they are not in the company every day, you have to manage them very closely, and just in order to tell them what happened when they are not in house, because sometimes key things happen, and you have to make them aware of that. And on the other side, when you're CRO, you have to set up just one key contact in the company for each partner, each customer. That means, and just because each company or each research team has its specificity, as its way of working, of communicating, and things like that. So we have systematically, we decide to dedicate a study director to a specific customer. And it's a relationship that can be developed along years. And of course we have backups and things like that, because we have decided that our study directors could go on holidays sometimes. So we have backups, but we have, for each customer, we know who the key contact is at Xentech. And it's very important, because they have real, sometimes some friendly relationships after years, and it's very important. And yes, and back to BioSupport, yes, we have to manage them very closely, and sometimes more closely than our own full-time employees, but it's the only way to work.
I agree with you that you have to have coordinations in startups, but I'm amazed that all the tools, the digital tools, the platforms, also reorganize, reshapes coordinations and helps the outside and the inside to work together. So that's quite new to our, has been to our times. And that's interoperable. I have so many, you have so many ideas about that, but, and examples that comes in mind. But really those platforms help a lot, those tools for interoperability. So it's better to say in French, but it's difficult anyway. So I guess it's quite new nowadays.
What about the the cost? Because I can imagine that the virtual entrepreneur on the other side, time is over. No, the entrepreneur on the other side is saying, okay, if I was rich, I would obviously outsource everything, but I don't have any money, so I have to do everything by my own. So that can be a reason, probably more frequent than expected. So why can we justify the outsourcing based on the cost of that versus the value or the opportunity cost? So what can you say on that? Okay.
I will answer as an investor. We know that when we invest in biotechs, we know that we'll finance the company for like 5 or more or 10 years without any profit or whatever. So you have to shape your business model and say, well, I will save 1 year or capital with using outsourcing. So that's worth outsourcing, but you have to. I mean, time is money, and that's how I would answer, and I would choose what I outsource and not, and the path each year.
Anything on that, Anne?
Well, just saying again what we said before, choosing your fight, focus on your core activity, and trying to do something you are not expert in. Maybe you will lose time, and time is money. So just that. Nothing more.
So basically the message to that entrepreneur that reasons that way is in your role of entrepreneur or CEO, your role is go and seek for money to pay for the necessary outsourcing rather than doing things of low value for the company and wasting your time or using your time in that is not your role, probably. That's so I understand that we switch to the questions and answers, or?
So if anyone has questions, please go ahead. I'll be happy to give the mic. And if anyone's for those in the chat as well online, please feel free to write your questions that I can ask them to our speakers.
I'm Merle Fuchs, the CEO of Pramo Molecular from Berlin. So I traveled from Berlin to meet you today. And we're a mainly virtual company. We try to develop therapeutics, but we are organized mainly virtually. But I think outsourcing for us means something else. I totally agree that we don't have the time to implement everything by ourselves. But we as a company have to learn as much as possible. And we buy knowledge. That means we really outsource animal experiments, for example, or we outsource synthesis. But the rest we buy in. We use lots of service providers, but the idea is to buy their knowledge and to implement this in our company. And that means I totally disagree that a small startup in an early phase is able to outsource marketing and sales. That's the core knowledge we have to do. We get information, but it's the job of the CEO to sell the ideas of the company and to do business development.
It's true that you buy knowledge. I'm talking about Xentech, but it's the same for all other CRO. You just buy a study. You buy also the expertise that is around the study and all what we have done. For example, at Xentech, we have performed over maybe 3,000 studies. So it's a huge expertise, and we share this with you. And it's not just a question of study, but what is the scientific added value with that.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for attending the event. And without further ado, I think we can now move to the next part of the event, which will be the more relaxed one and the one that everyone's waiting for. So before we go, we just have one last word. As you know, those conferences are series. So we are going to have our next conference next month, in 2 months actually. And the next topic is going to be focused on startup and investor relationship. So if you want to just register for the conference, there should be a QR code that's going to appear here in a few minutes. That's not this one. You can also register to that, but anyway, we'll be more than happy to... This one. Thing. There we go. So if you want to register now for the next event, we are going to focus on startup investor relationship beyond the simple funding. What can you do? How should you choose your investors? And what can you expect out of it? And how to plan for that strategic aspect of a startup's growth. So please feel free to register. We hope to see you, many of you, next time. And now that everything is said, please join us on the floor above for a visit of both the Future Incubator in Servier and a networking cocktail. Thank you very much.
Thank you.